So this YouTuber just straight up vanished after getting accused of running $100,000 scam on his fans through a supposed live betting challenge. And when people started asking questions, the whole story went off the rails. One side claimed that he died, another side claimed that he had been arrested by Saudi intelligence, and his entire online presence started being wiped from the internet in real time as all of this was happening. Yeah, this is a wild one. But before we get into the disappearing act, the fake death announcements, and the whole I've been kidnapped by Saudi intelligence storyline, we got to talk about who the hell this dude even is. His name is Miles Rudelich. He is a 25-year-old influencer from Birmingham, England. And a side note here, he actually calls himself Lord Miles. And no, he's not royalty, and he didn't get knighted by the Queen. Instead, he bought one of those $15 novelty titles off of the internet and then somehow convinced his bank to put that name on his credit card, which kind of turned into a meme. It really ended up becoming this dude's whole personality. But honestly, doing this may have actually saved his life later on in the story. But before Miles was known as an online scammer, he was actually just a normal guy on a pretty normal path in life. He was an only child. He went to regular school. Eventually, he went off to university where he started out studying physics. Later, he switched over to finance. He even started an investment society at the university and took online classes at Harvard, one of the most prestigious schools in the world. He was on a pretty traditional path to a career in finance. Like, this guy was supposed to be somebody's accountant or something, but somewhere along the lines, things changed for him. You see, he was invited by one of his friends to go on a trip to Chernobyl. And for whatever reason, this trip triggered something in Miles' brain. You know, I guess sneaking into a radioactive souvenir has that type of effect on the mind. But after this, he became obsessed with going into these dangerous territories, these off-limit places, and he started making content about doing that exact thing. He basically started a danger tourism content creation business where he would Google places online that were like the most dangerous places you could go. He would put those on a list, turn it into a vacation itinerary, and go to these places and vlog about it. Completely giving up on his dream of becoming a financier or his dream of completing college. He dropped out and he made this his entire life. He does this for a while and then he decides, you know what, I think it's time to kick it up a notch. And he decides that the next place that he wants to visit is Afghanistan. Like, this is right as the Taliban was making an advance towards the government. The entire world was screaming in capital letters, "Do not go." Embassies are closing. The government is telling its citizens and military personnel to leave the country. And Miles was like, yeah, this sounds like the perfect time for me to visit.
To Afghanistan now, where the Taliban is seizing control of more and more territory. Militants have taken their 10th major city of Ghazni and are closing in on Kandahar in the south. Now concerns are growing that they could take the capital of Kabul, home to U.S. Embassy and hundreds of American troops.
He buys a ticket, files for a visa, and then, of course, immediately started having doubts about this trip, which I don't blame him. He should have had doubts about this trip, but he starts second guessing it. But the ticket's non-refundable status, I guess, basically made him feel like, well, I spent my money on this ticket, so I guess I have to go. And so he does. And it's not like Miles didn't know that the country was in a bad position and dangerous when he booked this ticket. He totally did, because he took some of the most extreme just in case I die precautions that I've ever seen an influencer have to take. He bought one of those GPS SOS beacons that sends out a signal to rescue teams just in case you're kidnapped or buried under rubble somewhere. Then he set up basically a dead man switch that would auto post to his Facebook if he didn't check in a certain interval of times, basically to let the world know that, you know, he wasn't alive or whatever. So if he posted, everything was good. If he didn't, this dead man switch would flip. Like, bro fully expected this trip to end in a memorial post. And the moment that he lands, everything goes downhill pretty quickly. Locals were already panicking, pulling their money out of banks because they thought the financial system over there was going to collapse because, like I said, the Taliban was moving in and taking over. And when Miles landed, he realized, oh, this is going to be bad. So him and his local tour guide rush to the British embassy, hoping that the British embassy can help him. The man was literally disguising himself in a burqa so that he could make it there safely. And when he got there, the place was empty, completely deserted. Everybody had already left because the military had pulled everybody out. The orders were already given for everybody to leave. So his only real shot of survival at this point was to go to the airport and fight to try to get on a plane with everybody else that was trying to evacuate the area as well.
I'm going to graduate, and I'm going to work like a 80-hour week job, 80-hour week job until I'm 40 something. So it's my one opportunity to go on like a mad lad adventure. Basically, this is just white boy summer right here. Yeah. So when I walked to the airport, the Taliban were literally driving into the airport, and I was leaving because there was no flights. And I had my cross around my neck, and they just looked at me, but I just didn't care. Like, what are we gonna do? Shoot me? They didn't. So yeah. Stared down the Taliban, and they looked so happy. They were smiling, like, "Ooh, we can move the capital. We're in here." To be fair, they've just waited like 20 years to get their place back. How long to a flight? Okay, how long to a flight? No idea. I have no idea. I'm not too sure if the flight's even happening. I might have to have a military evac. So like, there's loads of helicopters overhead. Oh. I just heard a whirring noise like a firework. Or it might be a missile. Miles, are you going to be safe in your safe house? Well, if I rename it to a normal house, it's not a safe house anymore. I should be safe. I don't know anywhere else. I think it should be fine. I think it should be fine. If I die, I die. But if not, it's all good.
He landed on August 13th. By August 15th, Kabul had already been taken over by the Taliban. 2 days. That's how long he was there while this was happening. And right in the middle of all this, Miles starts posting real-time live updates. And because this story absolutely refuses to be normal, 4chan users started actually tracking Taliban movements for Miles. And after a couple of days of them feeding him information and him posting on 4chan, he was finally evacuated after the British government stepped in, got him on one of the military planes that were in the country leaving, going to Dubai. So he successfully made it out of the country, but I'm sure that he was thinking to himself, damn, that was a bad idea. When he got to Dubai, he was quarantined for a little while, went through that, and eventually did make it back to the UK. But by the time he had made it back, his story, YouTuber, influencer gets stranded in Afghanistan. The story was going viral. All of the mainstream news outlets had picked it up, and everybody wanted a piece of the story about the kid who flew to Afghanistan while it was essentially a war zone. His online following blew up overnight because people wanted to know, was this kid brave or was he just a complete idiot? And the attention from this pushed him into full-on virality and online celebrity status for a minute. Then in November of 2021, he actually ended up signing a book deal with a publisher. He dropped a book called Lord Miles in Afghanistan and basically capitalized on the whole storyline, turning it into, this book that people could read. Now, instead of taking this book deal and chilling the hell out like any normal human would do after they've been through something like this, Miles decided that it would be a good idea to do it 2 times. And after looking into this, it actually turns out that the reason he wanted to go back is because the tour guide that was helping him while he was in Afghanistan the first time apparently was left stranded in the country when he left. He wasn't a member of a NATO nation, so they didn't allow him to flee with everybody else, right? Y'all might remember there was the whole thing with the planes taking off. People were literally holding on to the planes, trying to, I guess, fly out of the country by holding on. They were falling off. It was a big deal. His tour guide had apparently been stranded in the country, and he did an interview with a journalist. And in this interview, he actually revealed the full name of his tour guide. Obviously, this was bad news for the tour guide because if the Taliban found out that he was helping, the invaders of their country, that could be a very bad thing. People ended up reaching out to the journalist that published the article with the tour guide's name in it, and they actually ended up getting that article removed from the internet, but it was too late. Just like we use the internet, the Taliban uses the internet. They had already seen it. So he decided that he was going to take a second trip to Afghanistan to try to save his tour guide. So in April of 2022, he packed up his entire room in Britain, handed his house key to his neighbor, and pretty much said, if y'all don't hear from me here pretty soon, you can sell my stuff. He then starts sneaking through multiple different countries, trying to avoid being stopped by any border patrol along the way who might ask the question, why the hell is this random British kid continuing to try to enter a war zone? And when he finally gets in the second time, he starts doing a full-blown press run with the Taliban. Apparently, his tour guide at the very last moment decided that he actually don't want to be saved, pretty much ruining this trip for Lord Miles, right? And he posted this over on Twitter that said, for reference, I invested over 400 hours and $19,000 on saving my tour guide. Now that he's backed out at the last possible minute, he's ruined me. I'm insanely pessimistic right now. Even if I died on this trip, at least I would have died helping someone. Now I feel empty. He did walk those tweets back though when he sent these out and said, deleted all the doom and gloom posts because there's still hope for this trip. Wish me luck and I'm very sorry I almost failed you guys. I'm going to Afghanistan tomorrow and wandering around, seeing if I can help the homeless. I feel terrible right now, but I know how it feels to be homeless, so I'll help them. It is too dangerous there, but I have nothing to lose. So his tour guide basically saying, I don't want to be rescued, led to him, I guess, going over there and making friends with the Taliban, because the next thing we seen, he was on Afghan TV doing interviews. He's taking selfies with armed fighters like he's at Comic-Con. He even tried to sell Taliban merch on eBay before eBay decided to delete his listings. At this point, he's fully leaning into the persona. He's like, I'm friends with the Taliban. These guys have read my books. They love me. They think I'm hilarious over here. And when Instagram banned him for posting pictures with these armed militants, he just made another account and continued to post there. He eventually wrapped up this second trip to Afghanistan, and instead of going home and chilling and relaxing, rethinking his life choices, he decided that he was going to double down on this danger tourism persona that he was building and started essentially visiting places that would be on a checklist of places that normal people would not visit. He went to Kazakhstan, Sudan, Ukraine right before the war started, and a whole bunch of other unstable geopolitical places in the world. And I think right here, this is where his persona really started to solidify. He started feeling like the guy who could go anywhere, anytime, and not be touched. I guess hanging out with the Taliban like they are your best friends can do that to a person. He started to believe that he was invincible and untouchable. And of course, he's going to find out that that's not the case. So at this point, he plans his official third trip to Afghanistan. But this time, the vibes are completely different, because shortly after he arrives, the Taliban's General Directorate of Intelligence pulls up and arrests him. And they don't just grab him, they also detain two other British nationalists, one named Kevin Cornwall, who was a 53-year-old charity medic, and another unnamed British guy who ran a hotel in Kabul. The Taliban claimed that Cornwall had an illegal firearm in the safe in his hotel room, and apparently everybody got swept up into the same raid, including Lord Miles.
The 23-year-old from Birmingham is now in the group's custody.
In life, you always have to take a gamble in order to benefit a little bit. Why do you think I went to Afghanistan in the first place? There's a risk and there's a reward, but for me there's only reward because it's so much fun.
The Taliban detained two of the men after a handgun was found locked in the safe of their hotel, though it's understood that it was kept with official permission. Mr. Routledge was arrested more recently after posting pictures of his exploits to tens of thousands of his followers on social media. He had taken no notice of Foreign Office advice against any travel to Afghanistan, and back in 2021 he was amongst those evacuated by British troops when the Taliban took over. In a statement, the Foreign Office said, "We're working hard to secure consular contact with British nationals detained in Afghanistan, and we're supporting families."
So now Miles is sitting in Taliban custody. And here's where things start to take kind of a weird turn, because there are basically two different stories about the environments that everybody was being held in. While he was locked up, his Twitter account kept posting like he was simply out on a vacation. And according to those posts, he was allegedly arrested while holding $1,300 in cash on his person. And from that point on, his Twitter account kept posting like he was living the good life. They were talking about he was watching movies, eating good food, ordering takeout, having picnics. He was basically being treated like a VIP guest by the Taliban. Meanwhile, the other guy who was arrested with him, Kevin Cornwall, was apparently held in heinous conditions, was critically ill, was barely getting any medical care, and his charity organization was literally sending out warnings that they thought he might die while he was in custody. His account even claimed that Miles offered to donate one of his kidneys to him while they were in custody, if, of course, they were a match. It made no sense, and it was pretty clear that either the online posts were extremely exaggerated, controlled by somebody else, or just tweets from this persona that Miles was building. Either way, after 8 months in Taliban detention, Miles was eventually released. British officials confirmed his release publicly, and him and the other individuals that were detained got to fly back home. When he got back to the UK, he immediately started rebuilding the "I'm friends with the Taliban" narrative. He released a long YouTube video about it where he detailed his experience in custody, what that was like for him, claiming that he was treated well, had daily conversations with the guards, and basically painting his detention like it was some kind of weird vacation. Actually, looking into this part further, it appears that it's no longer online because the YouTube channel he posted it to has actually been terminated by YouTube. And that brings us into Miles' next chapter, which is where he decided he was going to go to Saudi Arabia and do a 40-day fasting challenge where all he does is consume water. Not only was he going to do this 40-day fasting challenge, but he was going to do this challenge live for his entire audience. He was going to live stream it to prove that he wasn't cheating. And because nothing in this guy's story is normal, this entire situation ended up on a website called Polymarket, which is where people can place basically crypto bets on outcomes of things happening in the world, right? Like, for example, you might vote on who you think is going to win the presidential election. If you bet correctly, you can win money, right? It's that simple. But what this meant was people could literally bet on if they thought that Miles was going to be able to do this challenge, 40 days of just consuming water, or not. The betting volume on this situation went absolutely insane. Like over $14 million in volume was bet on this situation. And given the circumstances of, him doing this challenge, people betting on this challenge, pretty quickly everybody online started to wonder if this entire thing could be rigged. Of course, Miles swore up and down that he was going to do everything in his possible power to complete the challenge, that he wasn't going to cheat and that it wasn't rigged. He even, talked about this on stream, saying that there was no way that he could bet on himself, but he admitted that his friends were placing bets on this situation.
Did you bet on yourself on Polymarket? No, I'm not allowed. Betting on yourself is a very bad thing. You know what I mean? I'm doing well financially. So yeah, people were like, oh, why aren't you betting yourself on Polymarket? You can do it using alt accounts. I know my friends are betting me on Polymarket because they basically get like updates from me personally, and I just tell them, hey, I'm doing just fine.
So already the conflict of interest is kind of there, right? And then out of nowhere, Miles claims that somebody from Polymarket actually hit up a friend of his named Morgan and had offered $30,000 for Miles to basically throw the challenge, to give up and eat a cake on his birthday, because he was going to have his birthday while he was in the desert fasting on water. So they were basically like, hey, bro, I'll give you $30,000 if you just give up, kind of throw the challenge, let me make some money off of it. And there's, $30,000 in it for you. But Miles swore to God that he was committed to the challenge. He wasn't going to throw the challenge. He was telling his audience this because he wanted to be open with them about it and that they had nothing to worry about. And because of this, the bets on Polymarket started to go through the roof.
Someone on Polymarket has DM'd Morgan on Instagram and offered $30,000 for me to end the challenge around my birthday. They said, eat the birthday cake, don't worry about it. It'll be our little secret. This is my personal decision if I should end the fast.
And then right in the middle of this, the dude just goes completely dark. He vanishes, like literally just disappeared in the middle of the challenge. Then a company that was sponsoring him, his sponsor, actually made a post basically saying RIP to Lord Miles, claiming that he was in a coma after the hospital had hit him with the glucose IV, right? His tweets on his account go private, videos start being deleted off of the internet. It was a very strange situation. But then a totally different story pops up from Miles himself when his account posted that he in fact was not dead, but instead had been detained or arrested by Saudi intelligence. Later updates claim that Saudi officials forced him to eat 34 days into this challenge. And so this left everybody pretty confused. Was he dead? Was he not dead? Was this him even posting from his account? Needless to say, people were baffled and confused about what was going on. And this is where the story kind of takes a hard left turn, because while everybody was online arguing about whether Miles was dead or whether he was detained or whether he just, ran away so he could eat some chicken nuggets, people started investigating accounts that were linked to the betting tied to this situation. One of those people was CoffeeZilla, and what he found kind of blew the doors off this whole thing and exposed that Miles may have actually in fact scammed his audience. CoffeeZilla pulled up Miles' public Ethereum address, the one Miles himself posted online before, and started following the money, because all of this was done via cryptocurrency, which means it's on the blockchain, it's traceable. And almost instantly, the blockchain told a story that did not match with the Saudi intelligence got me narrative at all. He discovered that during the fast, while Miles was supposedly starving in the desert or locked in a Saudi cell, his wallet received $16,000. Then, less than an hour later, almost the same amount of money got sent out to another wallet, which they then sent that money straight into a Polymarket betting account. And that specific account just happened to be making tens of thousands of dollars betting on this live stream situation. Not only were they making money by betting, but they were making money by betting against Miles, basically that Miles would fail the challenge. But it didn't stop there, because the more CoffeeZilla dug, the worse this situation got. He found another transaction. This time it was from Miles' wallet, sending around $9,000 in crypto to a different wallet. And what do you know? That wallet immediately bridged over to Polygon. And literally 7 seconds later, that exact wallet sent that exact same money back to the betting account. And right after that, a whole string of bets gets placed against Miles completing this challenge. It seemed to paint a picture like Miles was the one behind all of this, placing bets against himself, knowing that he would quit, while publicly telling his fans to place bets for him to complete the challenge, essentially running up the amount of money he would make if he failed.
But then we hear a contradiction from Lord Miles himself. He says that Miles has been detained by Saudi intelligence on false charges from an American who created several fake reports to a bribed corrupt journalist in order to make money on Polymarket. Guys, you'll never believe the corruption on this betting market that he's in. He says, quote, "We are aware that someone who bet on the no option on Polymarket has bribed a journalist to put out fake news about Miles, manipulating the Saudi police so that they would detain him and to investigate potential terrorist ties. He has spent 2 weeks without seeing sunlight and remains in custody. His communication is limited, but he will try to give updates on his situation." Now, that's obviously pretty serious. Thank goodness he's not dead, like they said, but you see here that it says last edited at 3:55 p.m. Well, if you go to the earlier copy of this tweet, obviously he's in, Saudi custody, so there's no way he could have written this tweet. But in the tweet, it says, "So they would detain me." So later, "detain me" is changed to "detain him." Surely there's nothing going on there, guys. It's completely legitimate. It's not Miles writing this the whole time. Miles has previously posted his Ethereum address, which we can use to trace all of his activity.
Some guy was meant to pay me 16K today. Let's see if it's come through.
Now, I find that very interesting because around that time, we see the Lord Miles Ethereum address get paid $16,000 during his fast. Now, pay attention to the time. This is at 3:53 UTC time on the 17th. Well, less than an hour later, Lord Miles sends 15,000 of those dollars to this address, OX613, who then sends $14,000 an hour later to this relay solver, which is a bridge on Polymarket, to OXDE1. That's an account that has made $61,000 on an account titled Money, Money, Please. I want to make money. I hate my job. And most of his money has come from a bet on Lord Miles not finishing the 40-day water fast. You can see he's profited $60,000 by betting against Miles to finish this. Now, isn't that interesting? Lord Miles is sending money to the same address, which is betting against him. Once again, this is Lord Miles' Ethereum address, sending $9,000 in Tether to this OX613. And that account then sends $9,000 to this relay solver. It's a bridge to Polygon. Then the same day, you can see the same day, literally 7 seconds later, this account gets basically $9,000 minus a few bucks in fees for the bridge. And then that account puts a bunch of bets on Polymarket. Now we can actually see those transactions lining up perfectly with the bets made by this Money Please account. We see that in his activity tab, we see him betting a series of bets. The first one for $2,000, we see $2,000 here, $500, $500, $1,000, $1,000, $54.85. Guys, it's clear cut. The blockchain does not lie. Lord Miles was secretly placing bets against himself to not finish a water fast while participating in a water fast and pushing all his followers to bet on him. Meanwhile, then he's got this big story about he was detained by Saudi police in order to stop him from finishing his bet. And of course, his sponsor is claiming that he died.
So after people started noticing all of these transactions and basically the fact that Miles was sending money to a wallet that was betting against him, somebody finally reached out for a statement, and they did get a statement from one of Miles's friends who claims he was speaking on Miles' behalf. According to him, Miles had his hand in a bunch of different businesses, so it wouldn't make sense for him to scam his fans because he doesn't need YouTube money, right? His defense was literally that Miles is too rich to scam his fans, which is crazy because I can name probably an unlimited amount of rich people that have in fact scammed people, but they doubled down and said that Miles' real income is supposedly tied to him mining and exporting artifacts out of Afghanistan, like Bin Laden's car, which was supposedly worth $1.2 million. But the wildest part is that they seemingly admitted that the wallets were in fact tied to somebody that Miles knew, an Afghan associate who apparently was moving the money for Miles because there was a lot of sanctions on the country at this time. And so their explanation was basically, yes, Miles' wallet sent the money, but he was sending it to somebody to move. He didn't realize that this associate was betting against him. People were pretty much left wondering if this was all part of the scam. Was he really detained by Saudi intelligence? So CoffeeZilla actually reached out to try to figure out if he was in fact detained or if this story was just a story that added another layer to the scam. CoffeeZilla reaches out to the UK government via email and straight up asks, is Lord Miles detained in Saudi Arabia? And surprisingly enough, they confirmed that he actually was detained. The very next day, Miles' official account actually posted a statement from UK officials that also confirmed that he was in fact detained, so he didn't run away from the fasting challenge that he was doing. So at that point, the whole he faked being arrested to scam his fans theory kind of died, right? Because it's been confirmed that he was in fact arrested. So either he would have had to have pretty much got the police called on himself where he knew it would end this way, so he would have that as a defense, or maybe he's telling the truth and didn't have anything to do with it, and it was one of his Afghan contacts that was basically rug pulling his fans out from underneath him while he was doing this stream, and maybe that person is the person that called the police. I mean, who really knows what the truth behind that is? But just as I covered that portion of the coverage, I feel I should also cover his side of the story because he does have a side of the story, right? And he pretty much has told his side of the story through his tweets. So apparently I'm not the only YouTuber who has covered this. Obviously CoffeeZilla covered it, but there was another YouTuber who covered this in the last couple of days, Atozy. And Lord Miles posted this right here up where he said, the YouTuber Atozy made claims against Miles that simply aren't true. We gave him a very public, simple to find evidence, and he's agreed to make a follow-up video. He's got some DMs here where it seems Atozy said he would make a follow-up video if they can provide him with evidence, and a message that they sent over to him where he said, and by him I actually mean Lord Miles' team, But anyways, they sent a message over to Atozi that said, if he was to rig his own fast, why wouldn't he wait until the last few days of the 40-day fast so he goes from 3xing his money to 15xing it or more? Why wouldn't he put in more than 30K if the market cap was 15 million? Why would he do it from his very public wallet and not a private one instead? The fast ended because he was detained and swatted mid-fast. Yeah, he was doing some 5D chess to make the average salary of a US McDonald's worker. His team don't want to berate you, but we ask you to bring up very obvious flaws in your reporting. And this is in response to a video that Atozi made, very similar to this one. I actually just went and checked it out. I'm like hours in the future from when we started this video right now, right? I went and checked it out. It's kind of similar to the one that I've just made, right? And they're basically saying the claims are baseless. Now, somebody did point out on his Twitter feed that just because he was detained doesn't mean it wasn't set up and rigged. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. It's still odd how he started betting against himself, right? And they quote tweeted a tweet from CoffeeZilla. Lord Miles' official account responded to this, and I don't know if it's him or not, but it said, understandable, but we must state again, it was someone from his team who stole from Miles and doxed him to people who swatted him, who's likely going to prison, and Miles is free on bail and will be released soon from Saudi. Miles, one, wouldn't scam from a public wallet, two, do such a small amount if he was to scam, three, swat himself on false charges and risk years in jail. It makes no sense. And four, he made $30,000 on pump fund in one day, days before he got swatted. Why would he swat himself for $60,000 if he could have made a lot more? His friend stole from him. Miles got swatted so people could manipulate the bet in their favor. When Miles is released from Saudi, he'll have photos of him in jail, documents of the jail, documents from his lawyer. The embassy has confirmed his jail situation. Plus, Miles' truth of events makes more sense. We ask you to reserve judgment until he's able to respond and ask yourself what makes more sense. And then just a few hours ago, they sent out a tweet saying that Miles was at Mr. Beast World, which I guess is like an amusement or theme park in Saudi Arabia. Mr. Beast has his own theme park. I had no idea, but they posted this saying that he was there. So I'm assuming that he's free. Actually, you know what? I just found a tweet that confirms that he's free. It says Miles is out on bail with 0 restrictions and 0 charges. He won't be making any statements or social media posts until he's out of Saudi Arabia. Miles has requested our continued administration of his X account until he's released from Saudi Arabia. His investigation could take up to 6 months, so around 4 more months maximum, but likely less. Basically, he's got an Airbnb, going to a few restaurants and cafes, and is flying a few friends out to explore the kingdom with him. So yeah, it looks like he's out. Him, his team, they're denying the allegations, saying that it's all baseless. You've got people that are obviously claiming otherwise, like CoffeeZilla. And at the end of the day, man, what you got is a guy who really did have kind of a tremendous story arc, right? A college kid who decided to make these videos traveling to these places. He showed kindness in a lot of the videos that he did make, like to the point that he was going to donate his kidney to a man. He was willing to go back to Afghanistan to try to save his original tour guide or translator. Right? Really wholesome stuff and a real opportunity to build a real journalistic platform, which he was doing by going to all these different places. And that's kind of been tarnished by these allegations that have come out, right? That he says isn't true. He was actually arrested. That's why he lost the fasting thing. But then there's the whole thing with the crypto wallet where there was certainly money spent, but they seem to have an explanation for that. Oh, it was a team member, a friend who was basically scamming him out of money. And I mean, to be honest, it's kind of hard to tell where the truth lies, but at this point of the video, it's where you guys tell me what you think about it in the comments down below. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, tap the notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a video. And as always, it's been fun rocking with y'all, man. I'm out.